In Portugal. We're joined by Roland Freudenstein. He's founder of the Brussels Freedom Hub. Thank you so much for being with us on the programme this morning, Roland. Firstly, if polls can be believed, there only seems to be one certainty as people vote in Portugal, and that is that the outgoing Prime Minister won't be in that position after the ballot. How are you expecting things to play out?
Well, it's a cliffhanger election, isn't it? And I think it's extremely hard to predict who really comes out ahead. The polls suggest a neck and neck situation between Pedro Nuno Santos from the Socialists and Luis Montenegro from the centre right. So we don't know what's going to happen. I think the one that will come out ahead is going to try to form a government, and this might very well be a minority government.
And there's lots of speculation too about the role that the far right could end up playing after the elections. Are you expecting the Chega party to make significant gains this Sunday?
Oh, yes. I mean, they haven't been around really before. So yes, gains, absolutely. Like in many other European countries, the far right is surging ahead. But in Portugal, I mean, not only can we safely exclude a Prime Minister Ventura in the future, but we can also, I think, assume that none of the other parties will want to have them as a coalition partner in government. So the only thing that is imaginable is Chega tolerating a minority government, and this would most likely be a centre-right government. Now, whether Luis Montenegro from the Democratic Alliance is going to go for that, we'll see.
Yeah, because both sides are saying that they don't want to go into government with the far right. But do you think that might change if we go into a situation where we're in prolonged coalition talks?
Well, precisely. I don't think there's going to be coalition talks. So Luis Montenegro, if he comes out ahead, will try to form a minority government. And then he will put the choice to the socialists to either support him or risk that Montenegro is then tolerated as a minority prime minister by a radical right wing.
Now,
and we've seen this model in other countries.
Sorry for cutting across you there. Speaking of other countries, this is the last parliamentary vote scheduled in the EU ahead of European Parliament elections in June. So how closely will it be watched in European capitals?
Very closely, absolutely. You know, we've had a certain trend in recent years of the extreme right gaining ground in many member states. But we've also had movements to the contrary. Look at Poland, where it was possible for a centrist coalition to actually win an election against an almost well-entrenched extreme right in power. So the contrary is also possible. And that is why this Portuguese election will be watched so closely as a kind of bellwether for the European election in June.
And finally, Roland, before you go, just talk to us a little bit about some of the main themes of this campaign. We've talked a lot about corruption, affordable housing also.
Well, corruption is probably the one aspect that is very specific to Portugal here. And that means day-to-day corruption, but also the spectacular case of outgoing Prime Minister António Costa, whose entourage has been closely associated with corruption scandal. The other issues are very bread and butter issues that we see in many European countries. This is inflation. This is a problem with getting affordable housing. This is the weakness of public services, health sector, and of course the big issue that the extreme right thrives on, that's migration.